All right, welcome back, everybody. So good to see you. We are reading The Talented Clementine, and we are on chapter 2. So all you have to do is sit back and relax and listen to the story as I read it to you. And maybe Bentley, my dog, will make a special appearance and say hi. But we're going to start with chapter 2, and Clementine's starting off on the bus. So there she is on the bus ride. All right, The Talented Clementine, Chapter 2. The next morning, Margaret sat next to me on the bus, as usual. I had never noticed it before, but she was very talented at sitting. Her dress stayed in place as if it were painted on, and not a single paper spilled out of her backpack, which reminded me to crawl under the seat to get all mine before we got to school. This is called being organized. The O'Malley twins got on the next stop, and they sat right in front of us. They're named Willie and Lily. When I first heard about this idea, I tried to get my parents to change my brother's name so it would rhyme with mine. How about Clementine, I asked them, or how about Frementine or Schlementine? But they weren't interested, so I just kept calling him vegetable names because they're the only thing that's worse than a fruit name, like I got stuck with. Lily turned around. "What are you going to do at the talent show, Margaret?" she asked. "I have too many talents," Margaret groaned. She flapped her hands around her head as if there were flies she was trying to shoo away. "Hundreds of them. I just can't decide." This was true. Margaret was always taking lessons. Clarinet, baton, twirling, ballet, swimming, you name it. She took lessons for it. "Why don't you do them all at once?" I suggested, which was supposed to be a joke. And okay, fine, not the nice kind of joke. But Margaret was not very talented at knowing when I was joking. "Oh, that's a wonderful idea, Clementine. Thank you." Then the O'Malley twins and I had to listen for 100 hours to Margaret figuring out which talents would be good together. Ice skating and accordion playing wouldn't work, but maybe tap dancing and singing? That would be easy, and she could hula hoop at the same time. Plus, she could play a drum if she put it around her neck. And maybe throw in a couple of cartwheels. And hey, she cried, slapping her forehead at the great idea that just popped in. What if I rode a horse on stage? "Well, I've only got one talent," Willie said. "But it's a great one." He lifted up his lunchbox, my whole lunch in my mouth at once. Willie, you do that every day," I reminded him. "Not on stage," Willie answered. Then he asked me what I was going to do. "It's a surprise," my mouth said, without me even telling to do it, which was not a lie, because if I did anything at all up on stage next weekend, it would be a pretty big surprise, all right. And then I pressed my mouth into a ruler line for the rest of the bus ride, so I couldn't say any more surprises. In school, my teacher started in with Talentpalooza business so fast, I thought it was the new last part of the Pledge of Allegiance. "With liberty and justice for all," and I know we're all excited to get started on our project, he said. So it was too late for my secret plan of hypnotizing him into forgetting. Luckily, I thought up another really good plan right away. I raised my hand. "Yes, Clementine, do you want to volunteer for a cooperative group?" "I would like to tell something to you," I answered. I made a capital P with my fingers, which means private. My teacher nodded, so I went up to his desk. I made quick secret eyes all around behind there to look for pizza and donuts. Everyone knows teachers eat when kids aren't looking. But I didn't find any. Then I told him what I was thinking. What if there's a kid who doesn't have any talents? Not me, because I have LOTS, lots, of course. I have so many. But what if some other kid doesn't have talent? "Everyone has a talent, Clementine." There's Clementine, his teacher saying, "Everyone has a talent, Clementine." Everyone has something they're especially good at. But what if one kid got left out? What if whoever's in charge forgot to give one kid a talent? Wouldn't that person, who is not me, be embarrassed at the talent show? "Oh, Clementine, that is so very thoughtful of you," my teacher said. "But Yep, I am very thoughtful, so I guess we should just forget about that whole Talent Palooza idea. Oh, I don't really think so, but just to be sure, I'll talk to the class. Then he stood and said, "Class, let's have a show of hands. How many of you have an act to perform in the talent show?" Everyone's hand shot up in the air. Everybody's hands shot right up in the air. "Well, I guess that settles it," my teacher said. "But thank you anyway, Clementine." Okay, fine. It wasn't such a great idea. But just then, an even better one popped into my head. I'm lucky that way. Astonishing ideas are always popping into my head. I don't even used to have to use my brains to get them there. At journal writing, I did my idea. When I was done writing, I curled my hand over my sentence as if it was too private to share, which is how you get a teacher to come and look at it. Sure enough, my teacher came right over and took a look. He frowned, and then he bent closer to read it again. "You have to move this week?" I quick squeezed the word "might" in between "I have to move this week." Might is a helpful word when you are not exactly telling the truth. "You might have to move?" I nodded. Nodding is not exactly telling a lie. "Where might you move to?" I had forgotten to think about this part. While I was umming, I looked around the room in case there was a good answer lying around, and there was. I pointed to the social studies bulletin board we had made last week. "You're moving to Egypt?" my teacher said. I nodded again. "You never know." "Why?" my teacher asked. "Is one of your parents being transferred?" I was glad he had thought of this good reason. "My dad," I said. "He might be getting a new job." My dad is a building manager. He makes sure everything runs okay in our building, which has a lot of apartments. Last year, our building went condo. This means that now the apartments are called condominiums, and the people own them instead of renting them. My dad says sometimes they get a little confused and think it means they own him. He's not so crazy about buildings going condo. "He might have to take care of a pyramid," I said. I pointed to the cardboard pyramid Willie O'Malley had made. If I had made it, it would have had the right number of sides, but I was stuck drawing this sphinx because whenever anyone else tried it, it looked like a grasshopper. When I draw things, everyone knows exactly what they are, even grown-ups. This is because I am practically a famous artist. If they had a game show for drawing, I would probably win every prize. And I would not pick the dumb ones, like dining room sets or year supplies of car wax either. Don't you think it's unfair that game shows don't have good prizes, like gorillas or submarines? I asked my teacher. But he wasn't paying attention. "Your father is being transferred to a pyramid? Is he an archaeologist, Clementine?" He's a building manager. He says everything's going condo these days. He says nothing's safe. The Great Pyramid is 481 feet tall. That's as tall as a 50-story building. That could be a lot of condominiums. "And your father's going over there to manage them?" "Might," I reminded him. "It's a big job. He'd have to do things like hire the doorman and make sure the elevators run right. So I guess I won't be here for elevators in the Great Pyramid?" "Yup. And tell people no grills on the roof." That's another part of his job. Anyway, it's too bad that I can't be in Talent Palooza. No grills on the roof of the Great Pyramid? Right. And then please leave your trash outside on Thursdays. So I'm really sad that my teacher just patted my head. "You are 1 in a million, Clementine," he said. 1 in a million. Then he was all done being at my desk, and he walked away laughing. There should be a rule about that. No laughing for teachers. Look at him laughing. No laughing for teachers. Oh my goodness gracious. All right, chapter 3. So I'm going to go right on to chapter 3. So just keep listening. When I got off the bus, I saw my dad outside. He was trimming the ivy that grows between our building and the sidewalk. He pointed to an extra pair of clippers beside him. "You're 8 now, sport. I think you're old enough to handle these clippers." So I picked up the clippers, even though I'm not so fond of pointy things, and started trimming the ivy with him. And there's a picture. Clementine and her dad. After a couple minutes, he said, You were kind of quiet at dinner last night. Is anything wrong? I wanted to tell him about having no talents for the talent show, but just then the junior high bus pulled up and Mitchell got off. He came over and asked what we were doing. Got to keep after this ivy, my dad told him. It grows so fast it could cover the windows and be all over the sidewalks. If I don't keep cutting it back. Mitchell dropped his backpack. Whoa, he said. Do you mean that if one of the Red Sox was walking by and the ivy was shooting out on the sidewalk, it could trip him and then he'd be out for the rest of the season and then we might not be in the playoffs or even the World Series? Well, that's not exactly the reason the Condo Association gave me, my dad said, but I like your reason better. We're playing an important role in the outcome of baseball history this year. He held his clippers out. Want to help, Mitchell? Whoa, said Mitchell. Dude, he high-fived my dad, and then he took the clippers. Thanks. Mitchell began trimming the ivy. My dad sat down on the brick wall to rest. They started talking about baseball. We live in Boston, and Mitchell is obsessed with the Red Sox. He's going to be the one when he's older, if I ever get married, which I will not. I would like to marry a Red Sox player, but not Mitchell, because he's not my boyfriend. Then you could get all those hot dogs for free in the ballpark. Did you ever see a strikeout perfect game? My dad was asking Mitchell. I did once, in the minor leagues. It's a thing of beauty. What's a strikeout perfect game? I asked. It's when a pitcher throws only strikes for a whole game, Mitchell told me. Wow, I said. So 81 strikes in a row? Mitchell stared at me, and you could tell he was trying to multiply strikes and outs and innings in his head. Don't bother, my dad told him. She's a genius at math. Whoa, Mitchell said for the third time. Awesome. Then he walked off, shaking his head, probably he was going to go try it on a calculator. Dad picked up the clippers and got back to work. So, he asked again, is everything all right, sport? Well, Dad, I was wondering if we might be moving. Moving? He repeated. Right, I said. I was just wondering if you might be getting a new job in Egypt. You thought I might be getting a new job in Egypt? I nodded. On Friday. Well, that's an odd one. No, you don't have to worry about that anymore. We are definitely not moving to Egypt on Friday. In fact, we have no plans to move anywhere, anytime. Then we trimmed the ivy some more, and I got a good idea. My dad says I'm the queen of noticing interesting things. He says he's just learning from a master, but I think he's pretty good at it too, for a grown-up anyway. So I asked him if he'd noticed any good talents lately. What do you mean? Well, not the normal ones like singing or dancing or playing an instrument. Those are boring. I was just wondering if you've seen any pizzazzy ones lately. Well, let's see. In the park this morning, I saw a bunch of guys flying kites with fishing poles. They were really good, really talented at it. That would be kind of hard on stage. Any other ones? Well, on the way home, I was walking behind a woman. She had a poodle, a pocketbook, and a cup of coffee, and she was talking on the phone. I have no idea how she juggled all that. Juggling was a good talent. Thanks, Dad, I said. Then I went inside. Luckily, I found everything right away. My mom's pocketbook was right on her drawing table, and next to it was a half a cup of coffee, and the phone was under my bed. Probably String Bean left it there because I'm sure I didn't. And then I found moisturizer and I scooped him up. Okay, fine. A kitten isn't the same as a poodle. This is called making do. Let me tell you, it's pretty hard just holding all those things at once. And before I could toss everything into the air and start talking on the phone, Moisturizer saw a bird out the window. He jumped out of my arms and everything else crashed to the floor. And I learned the difference between crashed and smashed. Crashed is easier to clean up. Also, I learned that coffee is easier to clean up when you spill it on a new brown rug. You hardly have to touch it at all. Uh-oh, there's the big crash. Oh my gosh. I went outside and asked my dad if he had any other talents to tell me about. He put down his clippers. Why all this interest in talent all of a sudden, sport? I reached into my pocket and pulled out the stupid flyer and handed it to him. Talent Palooza, Night of the Stars, he read. That's quite a title. I pointed up to the 5th floor. Oh, he said, Margaret? I nodded. And Margaret has hundreds of talents. She's going to do something really pizzazzy at the show. So you're trying to think up something pizzazzy to do too, right, sport? Not exactly, I said. I'm just trying to think up anything to do at all. I don't have any talents. Are you kidding, Clementine? You're the most talented person I know. Of course he has to say that. He's my father. Still, for a minute, I started thinking maybe he and Mitchell were right. Maybe I had some really great talent that I just didn't know about yet. Then he started talking again and ruined it. Take pruning ivy, for instance, he said, nodding at my wall. You're a natural. One day, and you're already one of the best in the business, sport. Dad. My dad thinks he's funny. Mostly I do too. Or thinking of things to put on top of toast. Remember the lime jello? I still can't get over it. Sheer genius. Dad, I'm serious. Okay, seriously, let's see. You're good at math, obviously. You're an amazing artist. And you're really good at seeing things from a fresh angle. Having new ideas. Remember how you won the Great Pigeon War for me? And you're the queen of noticing things. You're curious and you ask the most interesting questions. Dad, I stopped him. I can't do those things on stage. But he wasn't paying attention. And you were very empathetic. Do you know what that means? I shook my head. Maybe it was something like good at a musical instrument nobody knows about. My dad sat down on the wall again and patted a space next to him. I sat down too. It's a wonderful thing to be, he said. It means you're good at figuring out how other people are feeling. You care about that. And suddenly, I was very empathetic. I saw that my dad was starting to get worried about me. And he was going to feel sad if he couldn't help me. So I jumped up and I said, Thanks, Dad. I feel better now. I gave him a big smile and I hurried inside in case he was empathetic too. And in case he could see what I was really feeling. All right, there you go. That was the end of chapter 2 and 3. And I will be back to read chapter 4 soon. So I'm so glad you're here. And it's a beautiful day outside. And near my house, we have some beautiful daffodils from my yard that I cut just to show you guys. Wish you could smell them. They're really beautiful, so yellow daffodils. And come back later and I will read you some more books and we'll finish Clementine. Okay, have a good day.